You can drop weight and still hate how your belly looks, even with Ozempic. Your face leans out, your arms will shrink, shirts will fit better, but the midsection barely moves. And the harder you push, the more it feels like your body is fighting back. So if you keep attacking it the same way, you will eventually burn out and stay stuck around that 20% body fat range. So in this video, I'll show you 3 phases of fat loss, where high-performing men get trapped, and what your body actually needs to release more fat. Firstly, your body doesn't store fat the same way everywhere. The fat on your arms and legs and chest behaves differently than the fat around your belly. Subcutaneous fat sits under the skin, and the visceral fat sits deeper in the belly. Each type responds differently to stress, hormones, and your daily energy balance. Visceral fat, the deeper fat around your organs, is metabolically active. So it's going to impact your endocrine system, the system that secretes hormones. And this is strongly influenced by stress hormones like cortisol. So from a survival point of view, it's evident that your body prefers to store energy close to these vital organs, kind of like emergency fuel. And now think about modern life. Constant deadlines, decisions, late nights, responsibilities, and pressure. So when stress stays elevated and your recovery is poor, it starts to feel harder to shed those layers of fat. Because as cortisol rises, hunger hormones increase and unconscious movement can drop. Also, water retention can increase, especially around the midsection, making you look softer even when you're dieting. And that is why your belly fat kind of lags behind the rest of your body. Not because you're failing, but here's where most men get trapped and assume that every stage of fat loss responds to the same strategy, when it just doesn't. And here's where the 3 phases come in. So your body behaves differently as you get leaner. And that is why fat loss can split into these 3 phases. Now, phase 1 is about momentum, so getting from a high body fat range down to a lower one, close to that 20% range. This is where progress feels the easiest, and large population data shows that people with a higher body fat lose weight faster initially because maintenance calories are higher and metabolic adaptation hasn't fully kicked in yet. So in this phase, consistency in anything is going to get you results. But most men quit phase 1 way too soon because the belly may not change that much. So moving on to phase 2, to break below 20% body fat. This is where most high-performing men get stuck because the scale slows down or it flatlines. You're still doing what was working, but now it's not working. And here is why. As you lose weight, your maintenance calories slowly decline and you burn fewer calories doing the same workouts or activity. And your body starts to unconsciously move less, which matters the most. And this isn't just a theory. A study published in the New England Journal of Medicine by Leibel and colleagues showed that after just 10% of weight loss, resting and non-resting energy expenditure both dropped by 3 to 4 calories per kilogram of fat-free mass per day. So that can easily equal 200 to 300 fewer calories burned per day without you feeling any different. Hunger also rises because your leptin drops and ghrelin increases as body fat decreases over time. Your body is trying to restore balance, and this is why phase 2 is about weight loss resistance. And eventually, phase 3 starts to kick in. And here is where the sabotage catches most guys out without realizing it. This is where the game changes to reach that 15% body fat and below. And discipline alone stops working. Progress is slow and steady, and you have to earn every pound or kilo that you drop. Bad sleep and stress impacts appearance a little bit faster, and the margin for error shrinks a lot. And so a few high calorie days can show up physically and take days to fix. But that's typically emotional eating causing that. So here, structure matters more than intensity. The truth is, you don't need to be shredded at 10% body fat or less. You may only need 13 to 15% body fat with sustainability and structure. More muscle, less chaos, more precision and consistency. And this is a recomp style approach. It's not all about effort, but an intelligent structure and system, just like you would apply to your career or your business, right? Emotions do not make the best decisions, but the data does. So what does your body actually need to release more of this belly fat? I'll cover this next. Does your body need more punishment to lose fat? No. Endless cardio? No. What about starving yourself to misery? No. But no deficit means no fat loss. When people say,
I'll just eat less and move more,
they're not wrong. However, if it were that easy, 70% of the US would not be overweight today. So it's all about being accountable and sustaining while running a career and a business, family, stress, travel, and somewhat of a social life. And that's where this breaks down for high-performing men. Not from laziness, but from deficit leakage. Not one big decision, but these small leaks like liquid calories, business dinners, oil-heavy cooking, weekend overeating, and unneeded snacks. These are all very small things, but collectively enough to erase your deficit. But it's not all about food's fault, because if your calorie burn fluctuates massively day to day and you eat the same, but your steps drop 40 to 50% on a highly stressful day or week, then your deficit can disappear without you noticing. Then phase 2 physiology compounds it. You diet and train harder, then you unconsciously rest more. As a result, your maintenance calories drop as you lose weight. So what worked at 25% no longer works at 20%. So instead, your body needs routine, predictable protein and meal structure, consistent movement to support your deficit, a measured budget to sustain your deficit, and of course, good sleep so that you can actually grow muscle and regulate your stress day to day, as well as testosterone and other hormones that are important. The body doesn't respond to constant punishment. It responds to consistency. For example, my client Craig here dropped 20 pounds in 18 weeks while still attending events, business dinners, and family celebrations. And that is because his structure replaced emotion. So this is a result of structured recomposition phases to elevate muscle mass while you're in a fat loss phase. And this next point explains where disciplined men undo weeks of progress. Let's compare two guys, Jeff and Bill. They're both over 40, both around 25% body fat, both saying this is the year they're going to finally lose the gut. So Jeff wakes up on Monday, checks the scale, and immediately it's up a pound. So he thinks something is wrong and he tightens everything up, cuts out carbs, adds more cardio, maybe skips a meal or two, and then days later he's feeling flat, tired, irritable, and then the weekend comes around and you know the story. Monday, the whole thing restarts again. However, Bill also wakes up, checks the scale, and sees that it's up a little bit. So he logs it and he looks at his weekly average trend instead of one single data point. He keeps his calorie budget and his steps and his calorie burn all consistent, training on schedule, just getting it done. Last week's trend was ahead, so he didn't change a thing. And now, if we fast forward 3 months later, who do you think is more likely to have a slimmer belly, Jeff or Bill? I mean, obviously it's going to be Bill, right? And it's not because he worked harder. He just stopped overreacting based on emotions or assumptions. And that is the shift that most busy guys need to make. You know, you're probably very logical in your work. You rely on numbers and trends and data and facts and evidence and all this. But with your health, it's like the body's bouncing between frustration and motivation. See, fat loss responds to a consistent deficit, not your emotions. So if you keep reacting to this daily noise, you're going to stay stuck and it's going to piss you off. If you run it like a system, you can repeat what works until you hit 15% body fat or below. And it's really not that complicated. Just systemize your weekly average trends, track your weight, track your calories and your protein, track your steps and your calorie burn, and track your sleep quality. They're the 4 pillars to it. And it all takes like 5 minutes a day or less once you get the hang of doing this. Most people spend more hours scrolling on social media than managing their health. Hacks and shortcuts do not get results. Your daily and weekly structure will. And that is why every client I work with one-to-one, we lead with the biofeedback data. Every decision is based on facts over feelings. And if you want help building that structure to break under 20% and get to 15% or below, no matter where you're actually starting from, the link is in the description to learn more about my metabolic recomp method. Now go watch this video to see why doing less makes losing belly fat even easier.